Hello. We're going to go ahead and get started. Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Has everyone had a chance to approve the agenda?
To read it.
To read it?
To read it, yes.
Have everyone to
We've
read?
all-
To review? I saw Dr. Freilich come in, and I just sort of lost my train of thought here. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda?
Yes.
Is
I
there a
move that.
motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along. Are there any comments from the public? Would anyone like to come up and make a statement? Seeing no one, there will also be a comment period at the end of the meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
Question. A question on consent agenda. Okay, as it relates to personnel changes.
Mm-hmm.
And it caught my eye.
Part of discussion.
I just, with the issues that we have, we've discussed at length regarding math at Middlebrook. The change of a Darren Gunn from an English teacher to math teacher, I don't understand. He's an excellent English teacher, number one. When you move him from English to math as opposed to someone whose forte is math, just, I don't get, can somebody help me through that?
Sure.
change,
Yeah.
please?
Lauren, do you want to speak to that?
So Darren is an excellent teacher,
He is, he's,
Yes.
I,
and he is certified in both English language arts and in math,
okay,
and he's qualified in both areas, and he actually has a really strong skill set specifically in data and probability. And so he is building a new course. He's partnering with Trudy Denton on the design of that course. So we had a quarter, most of our students in 7th and 8th grade had 3 quarters where they had a stride class, and then they had 1 quarter where they were in a tutorial, which is essentially a supported study hall. And with our invested interest in trying to increase math instructional time, we were able to take that 22 session quarterly and turn it into an opportunity to address some of the math content that hasn't been receiving direct instruction, and that's the data and probability standards. So I agree with you, Darren is a stellar teacher, and he's right now being a stellar teacher of data and probability. So he's building the new program, which is one of the steps that we're trying to take in the meantime while we're working out our math instructional minutes.
what happened to his role in the English department
It was built by another qualified English and language arts teacher.
that we already had in place,
Nope.
Yep, new teacher.
new hire?
Yeah, no, we're exceptionally confident in Darren's capacity and felt like it was a home run. And I mean, to your point, the pool of highly qualified English teachers is much deeper than the pool of highly qualified math teachers.
And we did interview multiple candidates who were certified, and we felt very confident in that decision.
Okay, fine.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. And now we're on to a highlight of tonight, which is the salute to excellence.
Excellent. So, welcome back. As you know, we have many volunteers in our district who perform exemplary service and fly completely under the radar. So one of those individuals is our very own Dr. Janine Freilich, who has served for 14 years in the capacity of the district's medical advisor. This summer, Dr. Freilich decided that after 14 years, it was time for her to step down for some very, very good reasons. And so we want to take a moment tonight and recognize Janine, thank her from the bottom of our hearts for her service. Janine has advised the district on a very wide range of questions. I was just reminiscing about the pandemic scare and avian flu, which Janine advised on, as well as the use and storage of EpiPens. So her expertise runs the gamut. She's been invaluable, and we want to take this opportunity first to say thank you, but also to recognize that great service that you provided for us for so many years.
Great. I'd also like to point out that Janine took on the role of a medical advisor at a time when she was not only working full-time, but also raising 3 very active daughters. There was certainly a handful, but Janine handled her medical advisor responsibilities with her volunteer medical responsibilities with her usual grace, professionalism, and kindness. So when her youngest daughter Delia graduated from the high school this past June, it was really no surprise when Janine decided it was time for her to graduate as well. And Janine, we'll miss you very much, but please know how much your good work was appreciated. So thank you very much.
Great. So for the benefit of the audience, the middle part of last year, we started a Salute to Excellence, where we take a moment in one board meeting a month and we recognize a person, a program within our school community. And so we are launching our school year with our first Salute to Excellence, which is Dr. Janine Frelich. So please come on forward. So we always have stuff. So first, some flowers.
This is well appreciated, thank you.
Janine, now you get your own Wilton flag.
You get your own Wilton
You don't have to
swag.
wear your daughter's stuff anymore. Wilton lacrosse, Wilton
Awesome.
soccer.
Great, and just a small token, right? So thank you.
Thanks
It's
a lot. I
really,
really
it's a
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Okay,
meeting you.
and
Do
do
you
you
want a
guys,
real
picture?
I have Nicola's hat on today.
Oh, photo? Here,
Don't
here,
leave.
we'll put you right in the center here.
Thank you.
Great, thanks
Great.
guys.
Yeah, really.
How's everybody?
We're good.
Good.
Great. Congratulations.
Thanks, Janine. That was the highlight of the meeting, everybody.
I move that we adjourn.
Second. Board Chair's report, I have a quick statement. Tonight, of course, is our first board meeting of the new school year. So I'd like to take a quick moment to thank Superintendent Smith and the administrative team, our teachers and staff, and of course our students for a smooth start to the school year. In the week or two since school started, we've learned that we have 6 National Merit semifinalists in the senior class, and that our SBAC scores are continuing to show positive improvement. So let's hope things continue on that path. I want to take a moment, though, to especially thank our custodians who worked tirelessly throughout the summer on several key improvements. We'll hear tonight from Jose and Chris with some details, but Cider Mills received a significant makeover. The high school is sporting some newly painted rooms and a new kitchen, as is Middlebrook, and all the schools underwent a thorough scrubbing. In fact, Principal Falcone has agreed to host us at our October 24th board meeting in the Cider Mill Library Learning Commons, so we'll have a chance to showcase that beautiful new facility. I'd also like to thank members of our board for the significant amount of work that took place over the summer. Our policy committee was hard at work.
We're hard at work.
As you can tell from the number of policies on our agenda tonight, with several more to come in the coming weeks. And Teaching and Learning Committee also continued their work with Lori and Laura's participation, ensuring that nothing as pesky as summer vacation got in the way. Most of our board members are also involved in contract negotiations, as we are in the midst of renegotiating contracts with our teachers and our administrators. So we're off to a good start, and with high hopes for a tremendous year of growth and learning for the entire school community. So thank you. Superintendent's report.
Great. I have a number of updates. I wanted to inform the board that we learned today, School Resource Officer Diane McLean notified the police department that she'll be retiring at the end of this month. Officer McLean has served here in Wilton since 2000 and functioned in the role of SRO for the last 4 years or so. She is known and loved by many, especially our youngest at Cider Mill and Miller Driscoll, who greet her enthusiastically whenever she visits. She's certainly an invaluable colleague who will be missed greatly. We want to wish her the very best, and we will find a more appropriate time to recognize her and thank her for her service in person as we move closer to the end of the month. As Chris already noted, we learned this week that we have 6 seniors who've been named National Merit semifinalists. Those students were among the 1.5 million students who took the PSAT last fall and scored among the top 1% of all test takers. So we want to congratulate Ashley Coltman, Madden Hervé, Jeffrey Wang, Alexander Katsukis, Rishab Raniwala, and Vignesh Subramanian. And we'll see how they fare as we move through the remainder of the school year and get the results of that contest later in the spring. I left in front of you our updated district mission and vision. And as we get into the update portion of the agenda, I want to just take a minute to review with the board that revised district and mission and vision that we adopted last year. One of our broad goals is to ensure alignment and cohesion with all of our activities, and hopefully beginning tonight with this agenda, and as we move forward through the rest of the school year, you'll clearly see the very explicit connections between the mission and vision and the range of activities from professional learning and curriculum revision to facilities updates and zero waste. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read the first part, which is our vision and mission, and try to set the stage for the rest of the agenda. So Wilton Public Schools for a Better World. Wilton Public Schools inspire and prepare all students to contribute meaningfully to a globally interdependent society. Guided by expert instruction and a rigorous learner-centered curriculum, our students actively pursue their goals and aspirations and grow to be productive and resourceful members of our community. That vision and mission is undergirded by a set of explicit values, promises, and our portrait of the graduate. We'll have an opportunity to dig into this with our first long-range planning session, which is scheduled for October 16th. We'll send out save the dates early next week. We'll have one of the authors of the Bold Moves book, which you'll hear a little more about shortly, with us that night to really lead us through a deep dive into establishing the portrait of the graduate.
Great.
So thank you for that. So is that it? I think that's it for me for the update.
Okay. Committee reports. Business ops?
Good. We were going to go meet again on the,
24th.
24th. We did not meet today.
Great. Laura, teaching and learning, you guys met last week?
Yes, so before that, I'd like to make the vice chairman report, which is that teaching and learning met and maybe policy met, but no one met as much as the chair of the Board of Education all summer, and she is the one who worked a lot and never gets any credit because she's always
Yes,
the
she
one
does.
speaking. No,
She's
she
fine.
doesn't. So I just want everyone to be aware how hardworking Chris Finkelstein is.
Thank
And not because she asked me to, but because I think we all appreciate her, and sometimes we forget and take her for granted. And I know I am always happier knowing Chris is in charge, so I enjoyed my summer. Yes, we met last week and went over a bunch of things, some of which you'll be hearing about tonight, including the new math class at Millbrook, right? And Chuck will be making some reports. We also had just wanted to briefly say, a meeting about the 7th grade social studies curriculum and walked through what they had. It was on the Holocaust. It's a brand new curriculum piece that they taught last year that was a lot of time and a lot of work went into it. And they did a deep dive afterwards about, what they need to change going forward. But I think it's just an example of a really vibrant curriculum development and just the constant reflections that go on in our staff and our administration that people don't see. That there are people, believe it or not, who think teachers go in and teach the same thing every year. But it just was really interesting update. So thank you for that update. And also FAPA curriculum review is meeting tomorrow. That was one of the ones that was started last year, is continuing. And that's it. I mean, there was more, but.
Right, thank you. Policy?
So we met a week ago on Thursday, and we have some policies on the docket, but we're also still working on a few others. There's we're gonna try and, before the end of your tenure, get a lot more on the board, so, or to the board.
It's a significant, I don't know if you've started.
I've only just briefly looked at
Yeah.
them. It's a lot of reading.
We're gonna be busy. Okay, thank you. Review and discuss facilities update.
Great, so we'd like to welcome to the table Chris Burney and Jose Figueroa, who lead our facilities and oversaw a breathtaking amount of work this summer.
I'm going to start this off, and Jose will give you the details. You said some nice things about Cider Mill, and I think the results are obvious, but I want to tell you what's really important. My youngest granddaughter is a second year at Cider Mill, and she made a point of bragging to me in front of her older sister, who's at Middlebrook, how nice her school was. much to the chagrin of her older sister. So the older sister is blaming me, and the younger girl, so that's what's important. When Superintendent Smith and I met a couple of weeks ago, just to talk about this meeting, we went through the usual list, and I said, let me throw in an update on solar. Little did I realize that we would be at the point we're at. The two solar systems that were installed on Middlebrook and Miller Driscoll, which went into production a year past April, this week combined to produce over 1 million kilowatt hours. The annual reduction to the utility bill is in excess of $70,000. So I think that's quite an occasion. We continue to generate without any real issues, and look forward to a successful 20-year life of those. I do need to update you on the high school. When the high school project was put together, and parenthetically, the design team is not employed by the town. The design team was employed by the Green Bank. The town is the landlord, or the town, in this case, is everybody in this room, is the landlord. We rent the space in return for a discounted power cost. So when the engineers for the Green Bank gave the proposal to put solar on the high school roof, they didn't follow through with enough due diligence. So the plan was to cover the gymnasium, the field house roof with solar panels. When we got into the nitty-gritty, it was discovered that that roof would not support the solar panels. It's not that the solar panels themselves are heavy, but they are fastened to the roof with big sandbags. That's how we keep them from blowing away. And the roof wouldn't support the load. So we started scrambling around. In parallel to that, we had completed studies of all the school roofs. And from that, last year, we started a multi-year, multi-million-dollar roof repair replacement program, which we're doing now. And it turned out that we were only able to identify a much smaller area on the high school roof that would accommodate solar panels. The bottom line from that is that we were unable to meet the anticipated $25,000 to $30,000 annual savings. In fact, what it turned out to be was something in the order of $11,000 a year, $250 or something a week. So the process that we had followed originally was the Wilton Energy Commission put the program together. They went to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen authorized it. So at this Monday's meeting with the Board of Selectmen, I went back to them with the news that we were really not seeing any of the benefit, or many of the benefits that we assumed. And we talked about some of the attendant risks of putting solar on the roof, which is obviously roof leaks, extra maintenance activities on the roof. And we're also looking at virtual net metering in a joint venture with, started with the town of Weston, and now we're dealing directly with another vendor. So hold that for a moment. The Board of Selectmen authorized me to cease working with Green Bank for the installation of solar on the high school roof. So that's a negative. The positive is that the solar farm that we have partnered with is already under construction in north of Middletown. And teaming with Weston, we will take 3 accounts off that, and we will be supplementing the high school power, Cider Mill power, and Middlebrook power. We can only take 3 accounts with that agreement. The second agreement will allow us to take another 4 accounts. So the goal is that in 2 years from now or 3 years from now, the overall electricity budget from the town, and that's the town and the Board of Ed, will be comprised of over 70% of renewable resource. And the cost of power purchased by the board for all of the schools will be significantly reduced. The advantage of the virtual net metering is, well, from my point of view, I don't have to worry about anything and I don't have to do anything. We just sign a contract and we get a discounted rate of power. And all of the risk is assumed by the third party. It's a complicated arrangement. They sell to Eversource, Eversource sells to us, and we get paid back from the company. The details I'd be more than willing to share with you. If one night you can't sleep, you want to call me, and we can do that. But I just thought it was interesting that this week we had 1 million kilowatt hours generated. Talking about roofs, this summer we have been working on replacing 3 sections of the high school roof. Nothing unusual about it. The project is behind schedule, as I said, nothing unusual. We actually ran into some wet weather which delayed us, and we ran into some really hot weather which delayed us. Project we expect to be complete in a couple of weeks. I would like to pay particular attention to Mark Esposito, our HVAC mechanic. When we're replacing the roof, some of the products we use, some people don't like the smell. Those of us that work in the industry do. We're kind of fond of it. But we had to stop the smells coming in the building. And Mark, Jose and Mark got together with the roofing contractor, and Mark came up with some temporary external activated charcoal filters. Activated charcoal will absorb odors. So we were able to proceed, and I have not received one complaint from anybody regarding odor in the building, and we are still working on the roof. So I think that, a testament to Mark's ingenuity and ability and responsiveness, and the project continues. For those of you who have been to Cider Mill, you will see a beautiful brand new parking lot, which I really think sets off the building. There was one piece that we couldn't address, the canopy, which probably now sticks out like more of a sore thumb than it did. The canopy is funded to the extent that I have money for bonded roof replacements. Part of those roofs are the high school, and then we have to go and do the town hall roofs. There are 5 roofs at the town hall, and all of them have failed. I can't take money out of that budget for cider mill canopy until I finish those projects and know whether I've got change orders. So I just want to alert you that the cider mill canopy may not see any improvements in the immediate future. It may be a piecemeal project as we find money available and come in on weekends or over holiday periods and do some restoration work. It will be completed, it will be upgraded. It just may not be this fall. So as part of the cider mill parking lot, we also discovered we had to rebuild every one of the catch basins. So hopefully, one of those rare situations where we're actually hoping for a good rainstorm to see if it works. Not always welcomed by the rest of the world, but we have our reasons. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about what we're planning to do next summer. It's very early, I know, and this is obviously a high-level look. But good news for my other granddaughter, we are planning to start Middlebrook. So Jose and his team will be doing the same thing at Middlebrook that we've just completed at Cider Mill. We will also be replacing 2 of the elevators in the high school. There are 3 elevators. They have all been rated as in need of replacement by the state fire marshal's office, who regulates elevators. They are, simply put, they are hydraulic elevators. They don't have cables. There's a cylinder with fluid in it. You pressurize the fluid and transfer from a container, and it goes up and down. It's quite simple. But the cylinder is a single wall cylinder. It's only got one wall, and that no longer meets the code. So we'll be replacing those. So the entire summer of next year, we'll have 2 of the elevators out of service. That will materially impact what can happen in the high school. And Superintendent Smith and I have talked about, can we get out of using the high school for any summer programs? We will have Cider Mill available. We'll have Miller Driscoll available. We potentially won't have the overflow from the Y because their program will be finished and they can absorb those students back. So at this stage, we think we can do it. And we are also planning to become a little more proficient in our process. We are developing a program where we will interface with the town's building officials, the fire marshal, and if necessary, planning and zoning, much earlier in the process than we have, so that we will be able to say, come June, when school's over, we will be able to hit the ground running, and we won't have any technical delays. We have no problem doing the work, but sometimes the paperwork escapes us, and we need to correct that process, and we're working on it, and we will have it done by next year. So that's the high-level view, or one other item. Christine Lilly Way, for those of you who drive down there, I looked at the record today. That was last paved in 1998, 21 years ago. It is on our master schedule for fiscal year 20. So starting in July of next year, sometime through June of the following year, our intention is to pave that road. I think before that happens, we will need to have a discussion, and the "we" can be defined as to how do we want to deal with the parking down there. You all know that when there's a big activity, a big game, and it happens to be raining and muddy, the area between the parking lot and the road gets destroyed. And as much as we try and put stuff back there, soil there, fill there, next time it rains, it's destroyed because it's used as an overflow parking area. So that's something we're looking at on the DPW side as to how we can deal with that. It will impact parking, so I'll work through with Kevin Smith on that as to how that's going to be handled. But that's the stuff for next year. So having talked about the outside and looking in, let's have Jose talk about the inside.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Smith for supporting all these projects that we've done in the board. Without your guys' support, I don't think any of this would have happened. So thank you for your support, and continuing that also for helping out with the culinary projects, which was well deserved and needed. So our students are going to benefit from that. So thank you all for your support. We could start at the high school and then work our way down. At the high school, as you know, we renovated the high school culinary room, which was well needed. We gutted it out. I mean, there was really not much in there that we could have used, so the whole space is remodeled. I mean, we put exhaust hoods, grade level 2 hoods for cooking. We also put FRP paneling on the wall so that it's wash down ready, so when the custodians go in to clean. All the equipment is commercial grade. They're on casters, so it's easier for us to maintain them and again, keep the space nice and clean. Originally, we were going to have exposed ductwork in the culinary room, but when I walked in, I was like, nah, this doesn't look good. So there was a change order that came along to conceal the ductwork. When you get a chance to walk in there, you have to see it. It's hard to describe, but it's a very, very, very nice space. The last thing we have to do in that culinary room is paint it, which it needs a touch-up of paint. The contractor painted where he worked on the sheetrock walls, but we want to go in there and just kind of really, put the last touch on it. As far as finances, we had a budget of $400,000 to do that project. We came in at $401,000. We're $1,000 over, but we're able to offset that funding because of Middlebrook coming in a couple $1,000 under the original $175,000. So that was the culinary room. We also did some work in the TV studio. We painted the whole space. We emptied all the old equipment out of that space. We waxed the floors. We also painted it. We got a donation from Fran was able to get us a donation where we have a what do you call it? Anchor desk. Yeah. Which again, you walk into the space. It's very, very nice. And thanks to custodians. The custodians were the ones that went in there and painted it, so they did a very, very nice job in there. In the athletic director's office, in the entranceway, we replaced the entranceway mats. There was issues there where the carpet was no longer doing what it was intended to do. So we replaced that entranceway. We also put VCT tile in the athletic director's office and the Lynn's office. In the library learning commons, we installed a window so that when the students are in their study, that whoever's at the desk will be able to kind of look in and monitor what's going on in that space. As Chris mentioned, the high school roof project, there was quite a bit that was done, especially on the main building. There was 2 drains that were installed to prevent water from pooling up, so that was huge. That's pretty much it for the high school. On top of the custodians doing their day-to-day cleaning and putting long hours in and getting the building ready. It was very challenging this year with the YMCA there, but they were able to get the building ready. So I give credit to Caesar and his crew. They did a phenomenal job. Then we go to Middlebrook. Middlebrook's culinary room was renovated. That space is very, very nice. We have 4 areas of cooking stations so that Heather could have her students break up in smaller groups and utilize this space. That project came in at it was $75,000 for the hoods. It was $100,000 to do the actual equipment and install. It came in at $92,000. So there's one piece of equipment that we still have to purchase. Is a convection oven. There's a section of that culinary room that we designed so that students that were handicapped were able to experience the culinary program. So I had to get approval from the fire marshal, which he did. He allowed us to have the convection oven, which it's not underneath the hood. So he agreed to do that, so we're gonna place that order tomorrow. So that'll button up the culinary room at Middlebrook. The floors were done, brand new tile down, brand new ceiling tiles, brand new lighting. It's a really, really nice space, and it's nice to go in there and see Heather with her students working, and I just kind of sit back and like, wow, you know, it's amazing. The kids really, really do enjoy it. So that was one area that we've done. There was actually 2 classrooms over at Middlebrook that we completely gutted out. We painted it. There was also brand new furniture that was purchased. It's pretty cool. The 21st century learning furniture. You have to take a look at that. One big thing that I was really, really happy to get done was at Middlebrook was the courtyard. Every time it rained, we had an issue with flooding. We corrected that problem. Yeah, it's done. We had some decent amount of rain, and it worked flawlessly. It came in at $68,000 completed. So the work was done, so I'm happy about that. You know, now I can sleep at night. The library learning commons, again, Fran and you know, the Middlebrook staff did a great job of purchasing furniture. We still have a lot more work that needs to be done there. Next year we'll be replacing the carpet, also painting the space, redoing the lighting. So there's quite a bit of work that will be done there. But if you go in there, it looks really, really nice. And then we also installed a shut-off valve. Originally, if we had to isolate the water to Middlebrook, we had to walk out to almost near to the bus barn, and there was a valve there that we had to shut off manually. Now we just go into the pump room, and there's a valve that was installed there, so that was huge. It was nice to get that done. Then we go to cider mill. We basically went through that whole building and painted it. We replaced every ceiling tile in the corridors. We put all new LED light fixtures in there. I just wanted to correct something where it says furniture. It says that we replaced approximately 90% of the rooms. It's 90% of the buildings. The carpet was removed and tile was put down, except for the areas of the main office and the library. So, I mean, that building had a complete overhaul. From the courtyards, the inner courtyards, it was just gone through, and it looks really, really, really nice. It was funny because I had this conversation with Dr. Falcone earlier, and I said, you know what, at the time when we were doing the work, I couldn't really sit back and enjoy what we were doing because I was so focused on, we got to get it done, got to get it done. But when I was on vacation, I happened to come back, and it's like, wow. You know, you look at the corridors, they're so much brighter, it's nice. So, yeah, I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to doing that at Middlebrook. Miller Driscoll, I mean, the place is a beautiful school.
Can I add a footnote to Cider Mill just very quickly? Because Jose's, in the interest of time, just kind of scanning through this. But the courtyards at the start of weren't on my radar screen. He brought his team in and cleaned up all the courtyards. So now Cider Mill, in addition to having the kind of interior renovations done, has a handful of, in each house, right, an outdoor learning space, which the teachers have already started to utilize, and that was just, you know, that was Jose's time and attention and awareness, and said, you know, we're going to do the whole thing. So that was just a wonderful value add to the staff.
Thank you.
I know we're trying to be quick, but I can't say enough about Jose's work and his organization. It is amazing what was done in the building, and he's just such a pleasure to work with and so committed. I have pictures of him painting, and he was right there doing all the work. So we are very lucky as a town to have him leading this work. So
You got to delete those pictures. So, but Miller Driscoll, I mean, the place, that's what kind of pointed us in the right direction. When you walk through Miller Driscoll after it was renovated, you know, Chris being involved in that and and what he's done is just amazing. And like I said, I walk through that facility, you see the corridors, beautiful, everything's vibrant, and I'm like, you know what, this is what we have to do at the other buildings, and it's well needed. So that place is just amazing, and you know, with Kathy at the helm, she's one to sit there and let you know if something's not getting done, so she runs a tight ship. But yeah, we did some painting there, and then the custodians, you know, working hard and just making sure everything is where it needed to be, and we did the courtyard, so you know, that space is a very, very nice space. And then we have trackside, which is another nice space. We've done some repairs there, some alterations there. We added a couple doors. We're in the process of next week having cameras installed, the badge access system installed. All the Wi-Fi's up and running thanks to Eric, but it's coming together. It really is, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. So I look forward to Middlebrook. I want to try to get that building done. It's in dire need, so I hope you continue to support us. So.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
No, it's just incredible, the amount of work that Jose and his guys get done. And it's our guys that doing the work. It's just remarkable. They are jacks of all trades, and you watch them, and they're just so committed and in good spirits. I mean, hardworking. We are blessed
Yeah.
to have Jose and that whole custodial staff throughout our system. I think.
Thank you.
We really are, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's just amazing when you think about all the work that got done in just a couple months.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. So, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Summer curriculum work.
Okay, so I believe we shared with you a pretty detailed report about all of the work that we did over the summer around curriculum. It's a very detailed report, a little dry.
Yes.
So I thought it would be nice if we just had some people come and share with you some of the highlights, the more important work that we did over the summer. So we have two of our coordinators. Trudy will talk to you about math and science. Karen will talk to you about English language arts and social studies. And Fran will talk to us about interdisciplinary units. So, turn it over to you guys.
You want to advance? We did. Okay. So as you can see, we had a very productive summer filled with expertise, creativity, and critical thinking, all aimed toward continuous improvement. As a result, we collectively continue to progress toward full NGSS alignment, deeper alignment with the Common Core, Connecticut Social Studies frameworks, and the ISTE standards. In the humanities, we had projects in all grades K-8 with the exception of grade 6. The high school also had revision projects led by the ILs Jim Sheridan, Michelle Coda, and Dave Willick. In grade 10, they had an English argument writing project. Grades 11 and 12 had a writing across technology and a home and place project, as well as integrating SAT language, prompts, and assessment across grades 9 through 12. At Miller Driscoll, we created a tricky word-solving unit in reading, as well as it added some instructional supports with regard to instructional, interactive read aloud. We also added an all about writing unit. In grade 1, we also added the supports of interactive read aloud to support our units. And in grade 2, we added a mini unit called Growing Word Solving Muscles. It's aimed at our second graders who are encountering increasingly complex texts to build their confidence around encountering unfamiliar words. And in writing, we added a Revving Up Our Writing Muscles unit. That replaces our former lab reports unit, which had language that was incongruous with the NGSS. In Cider Mill, we had 2 curriculum projects. In grades 3 through 5, 3 teams unpacked the first reading unit of the year through the lens of access for all learners. They worked with providing suggestions for multiple means of expression, action, and engagement. The coaches also were hard at work in preparing for unpacking new reading units throughout the year with our staff. They unpacked the student outcomes for all of the reading units for the year so that we could guide staff in understanding deeply what students would know, understand, and be able to do in each unit. At Middlebrook, I color-coded this one. You can see in 6th grade, this is why we decided not to do summer work in 6th grade. There are 4 units that 6th grade IETs are working on this school year with regard to their assessment. And in doing that assessment work throughout program time, they will essentially be backward designing those units so that all they'll have left is their learning path. So those units will be completed throughout the school year. And the fantasy fiction book club unit will not exist in 2020. This is the last year for that in 6th grade. We have a more comprehensive unit in 5th grade. In 7th grade, we wrote 4 new units. They're shown in yellow there. The other 2 were already completed. And in 8th grade, we wrote 3 units. They are working this year on their dystopian literature unit through assessment, also their reading with independence, and approaching the classics through close reading, drama, and performance throughout the school year.
Just help understand, when you say we,
Mm-hmm.
who's involved in all of this?
Every teacher who teaches that course was involved. So
Because I think
all
it's important that the public know. I mean, the thought is that teachers only work, they have the whole summer off, 3 months out of the year. They don't do anything. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth, and I think it's important that the public understand that we've got a group of teachers that are as dedicated
They work all summer long.
and hardworking that work throughout the summer. And I don't think that concept is in a lot of people aren't aware of that. They just think teachers in, and school's over, teachers are off, and they don't come back till September, nothing happens. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
And I think it's important that the public realize that and understand
Yeah,
that.
thank you for bringing that up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, so, anyway.
Oh, Middlebrook Social Studies. I'm sorry. Sorry, colleagues. In 7th grade revamped their sequence and revisited all of their units and were able to really take the work that they had already done with the Holocaust unit this year, take a lot of the professional learning they'd already done with the Holocaust unit this year, and thread it throughout the year to create a stronger experience and a continuous experience for kids. In 8th grade, they also revamped their sequence. They had a new team member who brought a lot of new thinking to their coursework. They are doing a lot of their work the same way 6th grade reading and writing are doing theirs through the assessment work that we're doing through program meetings through the year. But they were able to redo their sequence and complete their first unit, the American Revolution, this summer.
Great, now I get to do double duty. I'll do my best. Math and science, we were busy too. The elementary schools continue to revise their units in accordance with the plan that we laid out with the revision to the math work. The timeline is as we projected, and we projected a 4-year full implementation revision plan at the elementary schools, and that's on track. In Middlebrook, we laid the foundation for the new Math 6 course, which is running as we speak. We developed an additional pilot unit for the 7th grade. And at the high school, we continue to work on a more seamless alignment with Common Core and work principally on geometry and pre-calculus. In science, Miller Driscoll has been fully implemented in NGSS now since last year. At Cider Mill, we've completed 2 of 3 NGSS aligned units at all 3 grades. There's one more science unit to be done at each of the grade levels. At Middlebrook, grades 7 and 8 developed an additional NGSS aligned unit. They will have 1 more to do, and there are 2 more units to do at the 6th grade. The high school developed additional units in biology and chemistry. Sorry, change page, here we go. Lots of colors, sorry, it looks super busy, but I guess that reflects a lot of work. The work that we're doing around, just sort of the color coding, the peach color are the units that were revised last year. The yellow are the units we revised this current summer, and the green are the units that are slated for revision next summer, with a couple of small units for the year after that. Our focus is really on shoring up students' understanding of place value, number sense, and fluency, fact fluency. Initially addition, subtraction facts, and then multiplication and division facts. Those are the foundation for all math learning going forward. Some of the units have been reordered and reorganized to ensure the proper learning progressions. And we've also done a great job of incorporating materials from a variety of sources. At Cider Mill, please don't think fourth grade isn't learning much. It's not representative of the size of the units. Again, same color coding scheme. A number of units were revised and reordered, and particularly at fourth grade, we condensed material. So instead of having many small units, we have larger, more comprehensive units, which really lets us build on student skills and do a deeper dive into the different areas. You know, specifically when you look at factors, multiples, prime, composite, that knowledge is absolutely essential to get into arithmetic operations, multiplication and division, and you have to do multiplication and division with whole numbers before you can entertain doing that with fractions and decimals. So that's kind of the logic behind building the work. We will still have a couple of units to do next year and the year after, but we're on track with the schedule. And it's often a balancing act because my hats are always off to the elementary school teachers because they do everything. So it's the same pool of teachers who are helping to rewrite the math units, the transdisciplinary units, and the humanities units. So they really do an awesome job. Middlebrook and the high school, no color coding, I'm sorry. We did, the work on the new math course is progressing really well. We did 2 full units, and we'll be developing the other units. We have the materials, we just sort of have to put them together, develop the materials. That's our work going forward. 7th grade is in a good place, although keep in mind that next year they'll be working on 2 courses because we'll be revising the grade 7 math course and the 7-8 pre-algebra course. In addition, we were able to develop the 1/4 probability and statistics course for grades 7 and 8. At the high school, we were able to create pre-assessments for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. We developed a couple of new units of geometry and pre-calculus, and there is also a new course at the high school, data structures. So the teacher who's teaching that, Christian Willem, developed all 7 units for that course over the summer. And that's it.
You're up. Okay. All right, so there was a lot going on also in the area of digital learning and transdisciplinary, and I wanted to first thank my colleagues here because without them, it's really not possible to do this type of work. Karen Trudy and IELTS and everyone really come together to be able to find those connections that we then are able to say that are across all subject areas and actually transcend, as transdisciplinary does, subject content. So in terms of the work directly over the summer, we did some work at Cider Mill, and I'm really pleased. We had lots of momentum last year with transdisciplinary units. We were able to implement 1 unit per grade level, which was really pretty amazing. We added to that over the summer, and we're on our way to having 2 units in each of the grade levels, and based in either science or social studies is kind of like the foundation. So one of the units written over the summer called Habitat Helpers has to do with the science unit about living things, and we call it the butterfly unit. And this basically takes into account reading, writing, actually social studies as well as science, and looks at how students are going to take a look at the migration patterns of the butterflies, and then looks back and says, geez, what can we do to improve our own habitats to be able to keep our butterflies from migrating? So they're going to come up with ideas of how to do that, maybe creating a seed packet, doing the research and actually creating solutions, and then finally putting it into a digital tool called Book Creator, where they'll be able to do a how-to instruction on how to do it for others. So we'll continue with the Global Inventors, which was very successful in 5th grade. So that was actually revised so that we're going to be giving that more time in 5th grade, and so that'll go over actually a full semester instead of half a semester. So as we're moving up the line, and we've been having such success with the transdisciplinary units, we're moving to piloting in Middlebrook. And I was very excited to be able to work with a team from 8th grade, beginning last spring actually, and then being able to work with Karen, the LLC team, and now the teachers on connections with the immigration unit, which is what does it mean to be an American, and looking at that from lots of lenses, and actually bringing in a what they call a human library of people, where we're going to have students actually interview immigrants and be able to understand what that experience is all about. We're also going to expand our global connections in 7th grade with more global classrooms, and as that summer work progresses, we just had a meeting with the entire humanities department yesterday, and they're actually thinking in terms of expanding this to 6th grade as well, so we'll have that. High school, very exciting. We were able to implement and write the unit and implement it this year in 9th grade, which is our Flight and Digital Literacy course. That's been a very good collaboration of our counselors as well as our library media specialists. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about professional learning. Even though it's not really curriculum work per se, it makes the space and it makes it possible to do the types of things we're talking about. We had a session that was part of the leadership retreat with the administrators that really brought into the ideas of using digital literacy and digital skills in connection with integrating throughout curriculum, and that will actually lead the way into doing much more of this work throughout this school year. And just one final note in terms of the technology, what goes behind all of this work with curriculum, we actually began using Schoology, which we've used for asynchronous PD and very successfully, as the repository for all these curriculum units. And behind the scenes, in addition to all of our teachers and what my colleagues here have done, and of course Chuck, Lori Gettner has been adding all of the units into a repository where we can see a vertical articulation, horizontal articulation, and every teacher in all of the schools will be able to see the units very easily.
Wow, that's great.
The final slide is just to give you an idea of what a K-5 sequence looks like with, if you take the science and the social studies, you'll see the blue, and those are actually being identified as the units that we're working together with. So that's just to kind of give you a visual. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
It's a lot.
No, it's just so much work.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's gotten done, it's getting done, has been done, and is getting, it's just amazing. Yeah.
Under very capable leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any questions, comments, anything?
No,
No.
it's amazing.
Thank you very
their work.
much. Yeah.
We also
Great.
have a couple of people from FAPA. Last year was the
Right,
year that we
right.
began the review of the fine and performing arts curriculum. So we have two of our instructional leaders who will briefly share with you the work that was done.
Great.
So
And you all
Susan
know-
Barbera and Nick Lowe.
Hey, everybody.
Good evening. I'm going to start out with the report on our summer program for fine and performing arts in the art section, of course. Our summer work this year was based around the surveys that we did in the committee, and teacher surveys, student surveys, parent surveys, and we found a few areas that we needed to work on, but for the most part, we revised the curriculum in art based on the national standards in these areas: creating, presenting, responding, and connecting to art in those different ways. Our common goal for all Wilton students in doing this was for our students to be artistically literate. An artistically literate person has the ability to transfer art knowledge, skills, and experiences to other subjects and settings in context to promote and enhance their lifelong learning. We were able to work on a scope and sequence chart that will show the vertical articulation, and every teacher is shared on that right now, so we can all see what each other have already written and are in the process of writing. We broke it down into 6 categories for each grade level. So pre-K through 12, drawing, painting, printmaking, ceramics, sculpture, and technology. And over the summer, we wrote for grades in those areas, 2, 5, 8, and most of the high school. The UDL units were created with the assessments in mind first, of course, and exploring the essential questions and exposing fine art students to enduring understandings that will last throughout their lifetime. We, as professionals, know that collaboration aids in learning, and so along the lines of what Fran was saying, we have a unit already that we wrote this summer that is in collaboration with the science department with the new national science standards in there, and also with our national standards on a glaze chemistry unit. So Sue Brandt and Jim Lucy are working on how, to teach the kids together with both standards about the chemistry behind glazing ceramics.
Do we have anything like that now?
No.
That's really cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We were also working on, I know at Middlebrook, in the future, we didn't get this done this summer, but we're planning on doing it this year. We also have a connection with the fine arts and the dystopian unit in 8th grade, and that's already written in the UDL but has not been submitted. And then we are also working a little bit with the Holocaust unit, and you will soon see the Butterfly Project, which was part of arts collaboration with that unit, and a piece of that, just a piece, will be here at the Board of Ed tomorrow. So that will stay on the board when you enter, and so you can take a look at that, but that's part of the collaboration of different subject areas. All the UDL forms, we thought, because we're visual, need links, so we linked most of our Smartboard presentations, so other teachers can also see, what we're doing. YouTube videos and our professional artist websites are references that we're using for any of our teaching. And lastly, I would like to talk about professional development, because that was a gap that we were noticing in our surveys. So we subscribed, with permission from Fran and Chuck, to the Art of Ed, which is basically a very comprehensive site for professional learning that is vetted and has CUs and all kinds of amazing resources for just visual arts teachers. And we just can't wait to get going on it, actually. We've already piloted it and tested it a few times, and we love it. We love it. So we're really excited to have that new professional learning that came out of the curriculum writing process. Thank you.
And on the music side, we worked kind of alongside with art in the next room over, which was kind of a cool process, because our standards, our new national standards, are sort of part of the same document with a lot of the same governing principles. So we also worked within the 4 artistic processes of creating, performing. They say presenting, we say performing, but that's the same process. Creating, performing, responding, and connecting. So it was cool to have the dialogue with the art folks to really sort of link those 4 processes together. Like them, we focused on revising all of our units for our building exit points, so grades 2, 5, 8, and 12. So we started there, and we're going to work sort of down and within across that. That work is mostly complete in all of the strands, so general music, choir, orchestra, and band. There's a little bit of work left to complete, but those grades are mostly done, which we're really excited about. We had a ton of people participating. We had about a dozen music teachers involved in the process for 2 weeks at the end of school in June, which was just fantastic for us to have that dialogue. We really had some really productive, good, rich discussions, and we're really proud of the product that we have down. Like Sue said, we're working with the UDL format, thinking about specific student learning objectives, what we want them to be able to do and show us, and really thinking about those assessments and designing with that in mind. We did have a pretty heavy lift because the UDL format was somewhat new to us. It's a thing we're working in. And we have our new national standards as well, which they came out in 2014, I think.
so, yes.
Yeah, I took a course on them in my master's, and I still only kind of understand them. They're really dense and require a ton of unpacking. They're great, and the things that they describe are fantastic, but they're pretty meaty and they take some work. So we're just really glad to have done it, and we're happy we did it, and we're really thankful for the support of Chuck and his office and of the district for believing in doing this work. So I know I speak on behalf of Sue Brandt and Michael Gordon, our counterparts, also when I say that. So thinking about some district initiatives, we looked at how can we help students grasp at their individual responses to music. What are they feeling individually when they respond? We talked about that a lot. We thought about that a lot. We worked with essential questions like, how do musicians select repertoire, or what music fits a certain purpose? We thought about how we can show students how certain musical devices connect to their emotions, and so that kind of plays into our emotional learning aspect. We thought about that as well. We thought about individualization a lot in our work. I'm going to put him on blast because I like him, but for example, Jake over there, he led a cohort that got some Queen music into our marching band halftime show through a little project we did. So so that's those are some of the things we've done. We're really happy with what we did. I can't say enough good things about my colleagues and the work that they did. So yeah.
I just want to compliment the FAPA group because they have worked through this curriculum process in such a way that we can now use it as a model for other subject areas. They developed this wonderful scope and sequence framework that I think we're going to use across all of the curriculum areas now. And I know that the UBD format was new to you, but again, I would hold up some of the work you did as a model. And I think it's just inherent in the work that you do with things like performance assessments. That's your bread and butter. Right?
Yeah, we got that down.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to compliment.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And I just want to point out that Mr. Liffin and Ms. Lover are middle school and high school teachers, but this was, as Sue said, like pre-K through 12. And just the beauty for me as a board member of going to curriculum review meetings is seeing the whole cohort at one table. And the first meeting, I have to say, in our curriculum review was like, oh yeah, we want them all to like art and music just the way we want them to learn math and love to read. But I think just your presentation tonight shows the same way that as each subject matter goes forward, you just all go off and do amazing work. And it's really been a privilege and an honor for me to be here. And just want to say to those who will be on the board for next year that however the committees work out, just take advantage and try to get on the curriculum review committee because it has been great, and I've been at least one of every subject matter that Chuck has run. It's just been a great experience. It's definitely one of the high points of my life on the board. So
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
thank you to
Yeah.
both of you.
Oh, yeah, just before you go.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
And Bob, maybe the state requirements for graduation relative to the performing arts, or are there
Yes.
requirements?
Yes, there are. There's
Just-
one credit in fine performing arts that the students have to complete at the high school.
Yeah.
Just one?
Yes.
One.
Oh,
Well, 1 year, right, 2
Right.
semesters.
pardon? Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah, just 1 year. is all.
Yeah, and most of our students far exceed.
Yeah, we get a lot of
Yeah,
repeat
we do.
customers.
Oh, yeah, okay, but okay.
Right.
I guess that is what it is. It strikes me as being a minimal requirement. It should be higher. I would, but-
In a
You should
perfect
run for the
world,
state board of ed.
Huh?
Right.
But
Yeah.
there just isn't the time of day. I mean, that's what I think also came out
No, I
that,
understand.
Right.
I understand.
Yes,
But
we
it's
are-
such a critical part of learning, in both areas, both the visual and performing arts.
Right.
I mean, it's just,
And in fairness, I think we've said it's a stated explicit value, in this district. We recognize the relationship between art and music and cognitive development and the sport of the more
Yeah.
traditional academics. And, one of the obvious reasons why our kids are so high performing is because of the robust offerings we have, the quality of the teachers, and the high level of participation.
yeah, well, my commitment is that those departments are inviolate. They will never be touched in terms of anything that has to happen because they're just so critical to your overall learning experience, I think. And it's just, I'm surprised that the state requirement is so low, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I want to
Okay.
just offer 2 very brief footnotes before you
Yeah.
guys go on with your evening. I know you have early mornings tomorrow. And just, so when Nick wasn't busy writing curriculum this summer, he was off getting married. Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
This afternoon, we interviewed a special education candidate, and at the end of the interview, she asked me, so what is it that makes Wilton such a high-performing school district? And I just want to cite 3 examples, because 3 of them are sitting in this room. So Heather Priester, we're going to hear from in the back, right? Sue and Nick are 3 embodiments of why Wilton is Wilton. They are kid experts first, so they understand how to entice kids into their craft. Kids feel safe, kids feel welcome, kids feel challenged, and as you just heard, they're content experts, right? So the level of, it certainly wasn't lost on me, and I know it wasn't lost on you either, but the examples of the essential questions that just rolled out here were profound. Right, so just think for a second about a conversation with kids in a music class where they're exploring the relationship between a type of instrument and their emotions and what that instrument might evoke in a human being. That's so far beyond typical traditional instruction, I can't describe it any other way except profound. And we see that in all of our classrooms. So thank you. You are why Wilton is Wilton. And you know, these are 3 great examples of teachers, but we have many in many of our classrooms. And thanks again, you know, on behalf of everybody for your tremendous work and your leadership, because that's not easy too. That requires a ton of time, an incredible commitment, and a real focus to move along. Lots of colleagues who have lots of their own ideas, right? So sometimes shepherding cats in a direction can be, it's its own unique challenge, and you guys have it in spades. So thank you very much for all of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Administrative retreat.
Yeah, so really, just 2 minutes. I think, you know, you've seen the theme here this evening is summer's not summer in the way that we traditionally conceive of it as a break. And that certainly is at least as true for our administrators. So as we have for the years that I've been here, we pull our administrators together for a very intensive 3 days where we can really focus on a couple of ideas and take a deep dive. So I just wanted to inform the board. We spent the first 2 days with a woman, Michelle Stewart Copes, who is an anti-racism and diversity trainer from New Britain. We spent those days discussing race, equity, and cultural competency. We explored implicit bias and cultural humility and studied the CLASS standards. CLASS stands for culturally and linguistically appropriate, as a tool for promoting greater cultural and linguistic sensitivity and responsive practices in our school system. So that work was really the launch. Our administrators read a text called White Fragility, which is very provocative. And the whole thought undergirding all of that work is that, you know, we just as human beings in this time and place need to grow in our capacity to be more sensitive and responsive to the incredible cultural diversity that is here in our school community. Moving forward, we plan to continue our work with Michelle. We'll bring her back. She'll be working with various departments as well as with the administrators, and we'll augment that work in a variety of other ways. Our 3rd day, as Fran alluded to, was facilitated by Fran and a team of our technology ILs as well as LLC staff. On that day, we explored the major tenets of the text Bold Moves, which is a book that really describes all of the shifts in 21st century modern learning. And so a group of teachers and administrators spent all last year working with Marie Alcock and Heidi Hayes Jacobs, the 2 authors of that text. So we unpacked that work with the whole team this summer, and that really sets the stage for our long-range planning, which I mentioned before will pick up again in October. That summer day focused on 4 major areas that we need to think about as we continue this transition to modern learning. Curriculum and pedagogy, contemporary teaching, 21st century learning spaces, and grouping of students and teachers. So it was a pretty exciting day, I think successful all the way around. The administrators worked on developing action plans and how they'll carry that work forward with their staff in each of their respective schools, and you'll certainly hear more about that as this year unfolds.
Great.
Thanks.
Sounds very worthwhile. Moving right along to Zero Waste, Tammy and Heather.
So welcome Tammy and welcome Heather. Yes.
All this exciting curriculum work.
Thank you for having us, first
Yes,
of all.
so
We appreciate it.
Sorry, I make humor. Okay, so we do have some notes, trying to stick to our notes today, but we did share some documents, whether you had time to read all of them or not, and hopefully I didn't print them all.
Please don't.
But, so a couple things that weren't in there that we wanted, we're gonna focus on just going over the deliverables that we put together for the district, just to kind of review them, talk about what we've been doing, what's going on, but a couple things that kind of came to light that we wanted to share as well. The Center for Ecotechnology did their case study with us back in like January, February, and that got published, so that's publicly up on their website. For like the 3 minutes, just focusing on what Wilton's been doing. In fact, I was at one of the Connecticut Greenleaf Schools workshops at the end of August, and they shared it at that workshop as well as like a reference
It's a
point
really
for people.
well done piece, little tiny documentary on Middlebrook.
So
Yeah, it's very nice.
yeah, so that's really exciting that's out there. We also joined up with the US EPA Food Recovery Challenge program back in the spring. So that is basically just another kind of recognition program for the schools to look at how we're reducing our waste, where it's going, how much we're reducing, what are our goals. Just a way to get some other additional support, workshops, potentially funding for projects.
Helping us track
Data.
the food waste, use their mechanisms for tracking data.
Yeah, they're focused basically on food waste.
You know, I know it's very early in the school year,
Yeah.
but now that we have the new lunch program.
Well, I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
we'll come back.
I'll get there.
That is going to be a big piece of it.
All right.
No, that's okay. But so just for that program, during our zero waste weeks, Miller Driscoll was the only one that really weighed data that we had going. So we just entered data for the one school for the food recovery program with the EPA. So this year, moving forward, each school will actually at least take 1 week to weigh their data. We just extrapolated from there. And the goal is to, make goals each year to reduce the waste, change the numbers, but they focus specifically on the food waste for the food recovery program for the EPA. And the other piece, Heather and I just got on a call today with Connecticut Greenleaf Schools because we're moving forward to pull in an application for the U.S. Department of Education's Green Ribbon Schools.
It's a national recognition.
So Connecticut doesn't usually get a lot of nominations moving forward. This past year, Weston High School got the Green Ribbon. They'll be heading down to D.C. in actually 2 weeks to receive their award. Danbury had an independent school last year receive, but Connecticut has always had one, if not none, every year. So we're hoping that that's going to vote in our favor, given everything that Heather has done. And we're focusing on submitting just for Middlebrook, because you can only submit one school, not district, through the Green Ribbon Schools. So that would be an exciting achievement for us, given everything that we've been doing. And the fact that Chris Burney mentioned the solar piece, which will be
That's huge.
a critical piece of data to put in for our application
So
as
we've
well.
started this process 3 years ago when we assessed where we were as a school and then as a district for our environmental awareness and status. And then what we're basically showing is our improvement over the past 3 years. So we had an assessment tool that we used 3 years ago. We're going to use the same assessment tool to show the growth. And they'll be coming in for a site visit middle of November.
So those are some other pieces to put on there. Okay, so district-wide, kind of the goals that we're looking forward to achieving this year. We are continuing with our Zero Waste Week education weeks. We've booked our fall week for the week of October 21st. And the goal is to have our spring week again leading up to the big Wilton Go Green Zero Waste Fair in March, which worked out really well. Focusing again on reduction and not necessarily focusing on recycling, but more reduce, reuse, repurpose. And parent education. So each school's little mini team is working on how we might, again, educate the staff, the students, the families within that school, but then as a district as a whole. So that's been really successful, and we're trying to kind of encourage other schools who have been part of our Little Zero Waste Schools Coalition to do something very similar, if not the same week.
And also the high school will be participating this year in the Zero Waste Week with the help of Michelle Mayer and the administration. They're going to have a Zero Waste Week as well. They did not have one last year because they were just coming on board, but this year they will be working with that as well.
So one little piece of tidbit we thought we could kind of ask the Board of Education to consider, whether it's a resolution or a policy, however it is, to say, this guide that we created, and we can't take complete credit for the guide because it was actually put together with the Center for Ecotechnology in West Hartford Public Schools and Department of Public Works. They made a much larger one for their district when they started doing this a few years ago, and so we took that document and scaled it down to Wilton's needs and what Wilton's been doing. But we would love to see it adopted in some manner within the board, or within the school.
Some sort of resolution within the district that we can say, this is how we want to move forward.
You know, we had the opportunity in front of the administrators in June, but in front of you as the Board of Education to kind of give it that last stamp of seal of approval, however you see fit, would be awesome. So I'll do this one, and we can run to the. Oh, and then, you know, I just want to add too that we did reach out and will continue to reach out because the Genesis program is so new, but it's part of our school. We do want to make sure that this is implemented there as well. And so we're going to try and find a way if they could do an audit, do something very small, how we can get into that.
I've already spoken with Cindy from Trackside about their waste management and who does their pickup, and we're working with Melissa and or is it Melissa or Michelle? Melissa,
Barrett,
yes,
yeah.
Melissa Barrett, to try to find out how we can work in there.
Yeah, so I meant to mention that. Right, and so the other thing that we were looking at just doing is, again, thinking of it as from a human resource piece, just kind of our lunch monitors are a very important integral piece of this for those that are hired from the outside in, to making sure that we can have, you know, this very small job description that is added into the job description, into the job responsibilities, just so that, again, when people come in and when people are hired, that they know that that is kind of also part of their job as well.
2 out of the 4 of our schools, the cafeterias are almost exclusively oversaw by lunch monitors, not teachers. So, you know, having them understand that, you know, this is a piece that, you know, we're going to ask you to help with the students, especially the young ones, I think is an important aspect.
Yeah. What other little ones for us to do? And along the same lines was the student handbooks. That would be a really big piece if we can get into the student handbooks this coming year before they go to print again, before they go public, before they get updated, wherever they need to go.
Having that zero waste mindset, responsibility in the cafeteria, at all the schools, making sure that you're cleaning up after yourself, putting the waste in a place, you know, that's appropriate. You know, we think that, you know, although it seems like a formality, it would be nice to have it down.
Yeah, so we're working on that, so we'll work. All right.
So this next piece is always, it's a little touchy, but the carding contracts for the Board of Ed and for the district have been a kind of a point of confusion, contention with all of the schools. Dr. Smith and I have talked repeatedly about these contracts, Chris Burney, Jose, trying to figure out how we can sit down with city carding or whoever else would potentially manage our waste to find solutions that could potentially in the end save us money and also reduce the amount of waste that we're either not recycling or not getting to the appropriate place. From what I understand, as of right now, we are still paying on a per pickup basis. So, as for an example, Middlebrook gets garbage picked up 5 days a week. It gets recycling picked up once a week. The recycling dumpster is half the size of the garbage dumpster. Our cardboard is going in the garbage dumpster because we have no space to put this waste, okay?
To recycle.
Yes.
And so there's no space in recycling. A lot of the custodians are taking the cardboard to the transfer station, but I just left Middlebrook today. There was a truck packed to the top with cardboard, getting ready to go to the transfer station, and there was still 30 boxes in the dumpster. We produce so much cardboard, and I think part of the solution would be increase the recycling pickups or increase the dumpster size of the recycling, and decrease the garbage pickups, which could potentially offset the cost of having a larger recycling dumpster, having more pickups for recycling. Unfortunately, I've called City Carding 1,000 times and asked them if they could potentially do this, and they've said no. Part of the confusion and frustration is that other districts around us have mentioned to us that City Carding in their district, New Canaan, Darien, they said Greenwich, oh no, they're doing it by ton. They're not making us pay by pickup. I don't understand why you guys can't renegotiate this contract. For 4 schools, the amount of garbage that we produce, it's a huge part of our municipality, and we just really want to have the opportunity to sit with them and try to come up with solutions. If there's a reason why we can't do this, then tell us. You know, let's try to figure something out. From what we understand from a commodity standpoint, if you want to call recycling a commodity, cardboard is one of the only things that you can still make money on. So for us to be throwing tons of cardboard into the dumpsters, every day just seems insane. So
Something Chris would,
Who-
should
Well,
be.
he's been engaged with city carding, and I think, what we'll do is we'll add it to a business operations agenda
Okay.
and to see if we can't move the ball a little bit on
Yeah.
this one. But this has
Okay.
been, Heather's right, she's been beating this drum for more than 2 years, and we've gotten
We
nowhere.
just don't know if it's our personally assigned city carding representative, if there's some discommunication, because we've met the New Canaan city carding representatives at our meeting last October, and they
they
were
came to our coalition's
dumbfounded.
meeting and
Yeah.
they couldn't believe it.
There, there
Really?
is like,
They were
there's a
dumbfounded.
long
Do we still have to
history.
Yeah.
stay with city carding?
Well, I think that the board doesn't have a standalone contract, as I understand. It's tied into the town contract, and the town had another kind
Well,
of
the board ed, I think,
sidebar.
has separate contracts underneath, but it's all run by the town.
Town, right.
But the town may be paying by ton, we don't know, but we know the schools are paying by pickup.
Yeah, so it's
But who in the schools
so
deals with that?
Chris is the
Chris?
person, yeah, and so
So he
this
does
is, it's
schools
come
in
up.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should know.
He
Yeah.
should know, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, and I know Heather's talked to him repeatedly about this, we just haven't gotten a good answer.
He knows
It looks
how
the
to
other
feel.
way when we come.
He runs far.
Yeah.
But he left.
Yeah. But I just, why don't we put that on a business operations
Yeah.
agenda?
That would be great if we could
Yeah.
get that worked
See if
out.
we can move
Yeah,
it
thank
I mean,
you
if
for
you
that.
guys can look at the contracts, you can kind of see what we're talking about, you can see what's going on from, that piece of it.
And I think one of the parts that's the hardest for me is seeing the custodians getting so disheartened
Yeah.
and frustrated when we go to them when we do these presentations and we say, we really need you guys to help with the recycling. You are our middleman. You are the people that are putting this where it's supposed to go, and they can't do it. So it's very frustrating for them as well. So I don't want to
No, but
keep
that's
too
like,
much time.
that's always
That's a
the
big
biggest,
one for
that's
us.
the biggest. Right, okay, so then we also shared with you one of many, but the most kind of well passed around case study regarding the costs and environmental uses of reusable foodware in schools. And so that's kind of something that's been kind of briefly discussed with Brian Reynolds really quickly, a little tidbit here and there. And looking at how we, or the Board of Ed feels, looking at the flexibility of running a pilot, of looking at costs, of looking over time, of moving back to the good old-fashioned dishwasher, reusable trays, and reusable utensils.
Wouldn't it be something that Chartwell would have some interest in putting
Yes.
forward?
No,
and
we've
moving on?
spoken to them. They
Yes.
are interested
Yes.
in
Yeah.
trying to find a way.
Right, but there's the initial upfront cost of the, retrofitting. I mean, Miller Driscoll is the only school that has now a small one 3-cycle dishwasher. So there's potential to do some kind of piloting there. But there are great studies. Like I said, this Minnesota study we shared, just, over time, the initial cost up front is there, but over time it is not.
The Minnetonka study is fascinating.
Yeah,
It's
well,
the numbers.
in Greenwich Public Schools
Yeah.
just went through the whole case study process as well. So their Board of Education is moving towards revamping all of their schools with dishwashers, and they're looking at the stainless steel Norwalk, Row 8 and Elementary, just retrofitted a year and a half ago, to dishwashers, trays, and utensils. So all the schools in the area are starting to move, not just away from styrofoam, which is the biggest thing, which a lot of public schools unfortunately are still serving food on, but then just moving right off to the more environmentally friendly way of having those reusables. So that is something that we'll continue to talk with Brian Reynolds about, the Chartwells, with looking at, piloting somehow to see kind of the manpower piece of it for us as a bigger school system, because the tricky part is that we can look at these other schools, but they are usually only about 400 kids in their school.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out how to deal with 850 kids coming through a lunchroom, 1,000 kids coming through a lunchroom at a time, and what's the best option for us for those situations. So we are, we do understand that we're different that way, but how can we still do it? So
And that kind of brings us to our next piece, and again, I'm trying to be time effective here. Our decisions around single-use plastics in the cafeteria. So Chartwell's selling the water bottles, all of that kind of stuff. We've pushed so hard to get kids to recycle, but really what we're learning as we educate ourselves with the environment, it's really going to be about reducing the amount of them that are created. And the only way to do that is to stop purchasing them. And water is the easiest thing to do, because we have water fountains and we have water refill stations at all of our schools. So it kind of makes sense to take that step with them, but that would really be a Board of Education and Chartwell's decision. So I don't know what all the implications are. I don't know how the public would feel about that. But I think that it's something that deserves just some research.
Do you know if any neighboring districts have taken action on that?
I'm not sure.
I mean, when I went to Westport to Green Farms Elementary School, they had done just a student audit survey, and just from that, one piece of their fifth graders thinking that they were going to make all this money on all these recyclables, and then realized it was like $10, and it was like bags and bags and bags and bags. The kids just stopped buying them. So I feel like there's part of, like, I know within the high school, like, we have some support in the back of the house to do that, to stop selling the plastic water bottles and the plastic bottles, but it has to come kind of from you guys on a contract basis and kind of reviewing with Chartwell's to say, like, this is something as a
Because
district
you
we don't
guys
wanna
do make money
purchase.
on the water bottles.
Yeah, we need to
So,
understand.
yeah,
that.
you have to
Right.
understand what
Right.
the cost of,
Right.
is gonna be for that.
Yeah, and the relationship
Right.
with Chartwell's, we just came off the school
Right.
food nutrition program, and
Right.
so the cost of that needs to be, so, I mean, we haven't looked at it, so we need to look at it.
Right. Well, and that being said, it is kind of early to say for the getting off the school lunch program about the amount of waste that's coming out, but I can just say from a Miller Driscoll standpoint, we don't have a lot in the food donation fridge the last 3 weeks of school. It's just about 10 or 12 milks.
That's great.
Yeah,
really
so I can tell you that I've, on
Yeah.
a bagel fun lunch week, last year, like, we'd have to go twice a week, because there would be 70 cheese sticks, 40 yogurt cups, like, I mean, it was a massive amount of food. Luckily, that was the 1 week last year that we could actually donate and salvage, where when you have something like nacho fun lunch or ham and cheese sandwich, you can't donate any of that, it just
Right.
gets chucked,
Right.
basically, in the compost. So, I'm definitely seeing less going into our compost.
And I have a scale underneath one of
Miller
the
Driscoll.
compost bins at Middlebrook, and we track the amount of waste, food waste that we throw away. So I will be tracking to see, based on what's being served in the lunchroom, how much the reduction happens.
Right, and I think in October, when we do these zero waste weeks, that we have every school weigh in, I at least have 2 weeks of Miller Driscoll to compare, is it gonna still be 400 pounds of food, or is it gonna be less?
Yeah.
Have you noticed amongst the students, like Heather, you're there, every day, is behavior changing?
Definitely the awareness. They are much more automatic, right? When they go up to
Right.
there's still a few students where you see them looking up at the signs and then down, like this, trying to make sure they know where to put stuff. But we've learned so much in the past 3 years of how to get the kids' attention from a visual standpoint that now it really is, they're just automatic in where they put their things. They come up, they know the compost is here, they know the recycling's in the middle, they know the waste is on the right-hand side. And they've really, like the 6th graders that came in this year, even the 8th graders that I have right now, this is their 4th year composting or third year composting, and they just do it automatically. So it really has been, it's been a lot of growth over the past 3 years for sure.
And Cider Mill reported the same, and when we were in the first week at Miller Driscoll, our 1st and 2nd graders were like, we got this. So that was really exciting. I think, we're I think where we all find that when we get mass contamination or it's the rush, right? So if there's a rush, nobody wants to take the kids don't want to take the time to sort. So it's like, again, that like habit change of like letting kids throw stuff away as they need to, and like making sure we have enough stations and making sure, the younger grades. The upper.
And we still are learning,
Yeah.
at every school.
Yeah. So then just really quickly, again, we're still working with Chartwell's. We're making sure all the back of the houses are doing the same as the front of the house. They're recycling their garbage, their compost. So we're making sure the signage is the same. And then from a Board of Ed, I'm going to talk about that. The Board of Ed. Sorry.
Right, so you'll see at the bottom, proposed capital budget to maintain the waste stations. We brought this up to Dr. Smith and the administration. These are made out of wood. They are filled with food and waste for the high school and the middle school. At the other schools, we don't have stations per se, but we feel that at the middle school and high school, it does look more professional. It does look more grown up per se, and the students seem to respond to that more. And we may need to have some money set aside in the future, definitely not this year, probably not next year, but to either have those redone or purchase ones that are gonna have a little more longevity, because these are gonna fall apart eventually. And then I put on here a proposal for a stipend, 1 staff member per school. And I can tell you now, like, I love doing the zero waste stuff, and I will never stop doing it for my school, and I don't wanna get paid. But I know that it could potentially draw in someone that's going to be a little bit more focused and dedicated at some of the other schools, because right now all of our other schools are mainly manned by parents. And parents, although they're obviously wonderful, they may not always be there.
Right.
Right? And so having a teacher that is dedicated at each school, that has a little bit of motivation, could be potentially something, and it doesn't have to be huge, just something small. That we could get someone at Middle Driscoll, someone at Cider Mill to kind of take on that role and really be the point person for the custodians, be the point person for the administration, to kind of take on the role of zero waste captain. And that was short, right?
I think so. I don't know.
So that's all.
That was a lot of stuff.
Sorry.
Thank you. That was great stuff. That's wonderful. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Questions, comments?
No, I just wanted to
No, yeah.
emphasize, it's up, like, you know, Dr. Smith and the schools really, you know, the Board of Ed will support things, but you're the one, the shakers and movers, so all of you start shaking and moving. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right, well said.
Get on the stick. Fix the carding contract.
Exactly.
I mean, it has
Yeah.
such amazing potential if we can make it go in the way that would work best for us, financially and just like sustainably. It'd be amazing. Yeah. No?
Well,
Oh,
until we get it sorted out, I mean, if we're getting paid by the pickup, shouldn't we at least get a bigger recycling bin?
That would be lovely.
I mean, have we asked them to drop off?
About 40,000 times.
And they just won't do it?
They don't
They
do
won't do
it?
it.
The one that charges for it.
I remember over 20 years ago when I lived in California, California passed a law saying all landfills had to be cut by, I would say at least half.
Right.
And within a week, you know, whoever the people, you know, dropped off a huge recycling thing, because
Yeah.
you need to like use the financial stick or something.
It's just disappointing to hear that the neighboring towns are not having the same issue that we are. It seems just
It may have
crazy
been
that
me.
there's somebody at.
Yeah, I don't think
Same
it's
man.
They may just be really mad at me, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, it's frustration.
thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
And thank you for all the work you
Thank
do.
you.
And it sounds like
Well, if it was, it would
call
have
to
been.
Mr. City Carding,
So,
or Mrs.
There's a-
City Carding.
it's,
Who's Mr.
it sounds easy, right?
It's
I don't
not
know.
easy to do.
Just a
Well,
regular
this
charge.
I don't-
Yeah.
There's
I
actually
tried
companies
my
that can do this.
first time in New York, I tried to.
All right, review and discuss migrant students policy.
Great, so just briefly, I'll walk you through some of these succinctly here. So this policy is a new mandated policy. This policy came to our attention as part of the audit we conducted a couple of years ago through CABE. And it's being added because simply we didn't have one. So the policy is very straightforward and notes that we'll provide education services to migratory students. To the best of my understanding, we haven't had migratory students per the federal definition. But we've developed a regulation and we'll add it to our manual.
This is state mandated, this is the language from K that is from the state.
This is actually our local language.
It's our
We
hybrid.
wrote this. There wasn't much in the
But it
K
complies.
manual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the same way.
Yeah.
Broadly, we provide education to all
That's
children
right.
who are
Yes.
residing within our
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
borders.
If there's no additional comments or questions, we will put that on the agenda for next meeting for approval. Let's move on to Section 504, new policy.
Great, so this is obviously also a new policy. We've had a Section 504 handbook for some time. Andrea actually revised that handbook very recently. Our procedures are solid and in place, and so this is an example of board policy catching up with practice. So now we will have a board policy that corresponds with state and federal law and our current practice.
It's a pretty lengthy policy.
Yes. It's a Shipman and Goodwin special.
This is theirs, okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
So we are then in compliance with all this,
For sure.
yeah, okay.
I can
Yeah.
forward you a copy of the 504 handbook because
That's
it's
okay.
written in much easier language.
No, wow, that maybe because I tried to get through that and I was like, oh, gosh, okay, yeah, all right.
anything else? Okay,
So we'll move that one also to
Yeah.
discuss and approve.
moving on to religion in the schools.
Okay, so as you're well aware, this is a policy that the policy committee and the board has been entertaining for some months. This draft of the policy states clearly our constitutional obligation that we have no religious belief or non-belief that will be promoted in the regular curriculum. The policy clarifies our practice of enriching students' education through the appropriate study of our society's cultural and religious heritage. And the policy aims to clarify that as the examination of cultural and religious tradition is embarked upon, it's done solely for instructional purposes and done in a balanced and objective manner.
And I forgot to mention that this teaching and learning saw this and talked about it at our meeting 2 weeks ago, because it has curriculum
Right.
implications and things like that. And so I also just want to say, the changes you've made, it's clearly, there's been a lot of work that's gone into it, and this is a great policy. I mean,
Thank you.
there were
Good.
huge problems before, but I was blown away by the improvement. I mean, I just think this is a great policy.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
feel
you.
so comfortable with it. And some of the questions that were like, buzzing around the back of my head are all have all been taken care of. So aren't you glad that?
Great,
I
thank
just
you. Well, we had this on, I think in last May or early June, and yeah, that's why
Yeah.
we do this.
Yeah,
We
no,
solicit people,
exactly,
can we
but-
go back and,
Well,
well, we're
internally,
really,
we've had so many conversations
we
that
spent a lot of time on this, yeah.
And it's clear. I mean, I know the public at the end of the day, if someone's on, will see all the drafts and all the work that all of you did, but it's very impressive.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it on behalf of all the children, because I was thinking about who is this for, and it's really for the children and for the parents, so they don't, religion is an important part of our culture and our curriculum, but, we need to keep in mind the kiddies, and, this does this really well, so thank you.
Well, thank you, thank you. Anything else? Okay, so this will also
Okay, that's what I want to
go
discuss.
on for, yeah, I think, we'll probably have more discussion. We're missing, 2 board members tonight, and I think they might have some feedback to add, but,
So we're gonna discuss this next time too?
no, we'll put it on
For vote.
Yeah.
for
Okay.
approve. We'll let them weigh in and, listen to any considerations. We've already heard from Lori,
Yeah.
in the past, but, we'll see if this addresses her concerns.
Okay.
But, yeah, so let's put that on for approval at the next meeting. Therapy dogs.
Right, so another policy that we've spent a fair amount of time entertaining and considering. We've done, fairly extensive research at this point in looking at the use of therapy dogs in other schools. We've had our own practice for some time, particularly at the high school, of episodically bringing therapy dogs in to work with students. We have a pilot a very successful pilot we're running at the Middlebrook School with Lauren Feltz. And so we're proposing a policy to catch up with practice here.
Is there, in the language here, something that we drew from other policies from other districts, or is this all created?
No, it's
in-house?
pretty
It's all new?
standard. In looking across other board policies in other communities.
Yeah.
Some local decisions we've made. For example, we try to keep our policy and regulatory language separate. So the policy is, the what, the why. The regulation is the how.
Mhm.
In some other districts, those things are commingled. But in essence, here our policy is pretty straightforward. That
What other
includes the
districts
use-
have a policy in this regard?
Locally, Bethel, Newtown, there was a community in New Jersey that I looked at. Who else did I speak to? Those are the ones I recall off the top of my head, but, I looked at a fair number.
Anything else? Okay, then, we'll add this to the next agenda as well. Administration of medicines, policy 5141.
Great, so this is not a new policy. We've looked at this one several times. The proposal here is that upon the recommendation of our Safe School Climate Coordinator, we are proposing to add language that permits the administration of naloxone, or more commonly referred to as Narcan, for the purposes of emergency first aid. So this policy would enable the school districts, under the supervision of our medical advisor, to maintain naloxone and administer it in the event of a suspected opioid overdose.
Absolutely, okay. The state of Washington just passed a law that make the availability of that much easier for
Oh,
citizens.
that's smart.
Yeah, it's just,
Sort of realistic.
my son is intimately involved with this.
Okay, moving on to action items. Discuss and approve appointment, appointment of a medical advisor.
Right, so let me just find my notes.
Passing of the stethoscope.
Yes, so,
I'm glad Janine's not here to hear that.
right. Right, so we are asking the board, as you know, our longstanding medical advisor has stepped down. She recommended as a replacement one of her colleagues, Dr. Christine Mackin. So we spoke with Dr. Mackin this summer. She came in, actually, Chuck and our nursing supervisor had a conversation with her. She is eager and interested, and so I would ask the board for a motion to approve Dr. Christine Mackin as our new school medical advisor.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? No, she's a parent too.
Yes.
Which is
there's
real nice.
Children
She's
in
got
our system. Yep.
Yep.
kids in the district. Any discussion, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a new medical advisor.
Great. Thank you.
At this point, is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and offer any comments? I have one more announcement, and that is that it is somebody's birthday. Happy birthday to Chuck Smith.
Thank you.
Hey.
And,
Fan club is here tonight.
and we have a little cake that we'd like to share.
Great.
So,
Do you want to adjourn and then we can do?
is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Or should
moved.
we make that cake eating part of the, okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Ooh.
Thank you.